It's not going to work sitting near the door.
Yeah, you can move, or you can sit in chairs too. That's fine.
Don't sit by the door. So I'm going to do a two-part thing today. The first part is just introducing two publications. One is a BBT publication. This is the cover picture. Some of our literary inclined devotees, Satyaraj and Kaishori. Kaishori is one of the editors for the BBT, very accomplished devotee. And together they worked on a publication, Don't Sit by the Door. Don't sit by the door. Don't sit by the door.
Please come in the front.
Can you come over this way?
Yeah.
That would be nice. Thank you. There are many publications that are specifically targeting a Western audience, or you'll say a secular audience, not necessarily a Hare Krishna devotee audience, that gives inspiration and information about contemporary art. So ISKCON has provided the world with lots of contemporary art, and so the BBT came up with a publication they called Avatar Art. I think they took advantage of the movie popularizing the word avatar, so people go, oh, there's avatar art. So it's BBT artists painting on different topics having to do with forms of Krishna that appear in this world, avatars. It's his home, he's just behaving like it's his home. It is his home, so he's just happy to be at home. So, this is, I'm not selling the book, I'm just like saying it's, particularly those of you that have some children. Children may be interested in understanding about Krishna and forms of Krishna from art. And you show the painting and then explain the story, and it helps the children learn something because it connects the image with the message about the form of the Lord that appears. That's a BBT publication. Then there's this other one that some of you that have been around for a while may remember a Back to Godhead article long ago, 8-9 years ago, something like that, where a devotee named Dhruva, who is the son of a Prabhupada disciple named Dharmatma, just like your children growing up in Krishna consciousness, he grew up in Krishna consciousness. Mother and father are devotees, and he was just somehow, could you turn it down? Off? I like it better. So he was attracted to Lord Nrsimhadev. Just like in many of our children, one of the first things they do when they learn music is to sing Nrsimhadev. And then they get a chance at home and then in the temple to sing Nrsimhadev. So this young boy developed a really deep attraction for Lord Nrsimhadev, and he did little odd jobs and saved up his nickels and dimes, and his plan was to go see Lord Nrsimha temples in India. And there was a Back to Godhead article because he visited the Hovelam and the temples there in Hovelam. But since then, he's visited many, many times, and he has a high-resolution camera and probably a few rupees, so that he was able to take very close-up images of the title of the book is Nrsimhadev, The Lost Temples, Part 1, or Volume 1. So I'm just going to show you some of the images. I like this devotee's attraction for Lord Nrsimhadev, and it helps my attraction for Lord Nrsimhadev. So this is a scan of just a few pages, and you'll see some information about the book in a minute. These are all from Karnataka, these images, but the temples are from all over India. So, Chintamani Nrsimha, and there's a little biographical sketch about each of the temples and the deities. Ancient temple from the 12th century. There's some legend that one of the kings of the area built a temple for the self-manifesting deity of Nrsimhadev. And the local people have this belief that the deity can help cure people of mental illnesses. And they also have this belief that Prahlad Maharaj personally worshipped this deity. That's their local. There's a lot of local folklore connected with these temples. Lakshmi Nrsimha. There's Lakshmi Devi seated on the lap of Lord Nrsimhadev. The origin of this temple isn't known, but the locals believe that Krishna came there particularly to protect this little town. And another intense deity, Ugra Nrsimha, means the form of Lord Nrsimhadev when he's ripping asunder or about to pounce on Hiranyakashipu. You see a cloth with a little border around it with red, looks like imitation blood stain or something. It is believed that this town was once known as Arjuna Puri, and named after Arjuna because Arjuna had asked Krishna to show him this form of Lord Nrsimhadev. Krishna said, not possible, but I can have a deity of my form of Lord Nrsimhadev manifest. So he requested Brahma, and Brahma created this deity of Ugra Nrsimha and entrusted the deity to Arjuna, and thus the name of the town, Arjuna Puri. The size of the deity is huge, and the mood of the deity is very fierce, at least looking. And all the village people come, not just the Hindu community, because they have this high regard for Lord Nrsimhadev. And there's this explanation in the biographical sketch that this cloth covers guess who, and if they remove the cloth as Hiranyakashipu's stomach is being ripped asunder, it is said that the person who sees it will go mad. The pujari has to see because he has to take care of it. Anyway, that's the legend, local message. Here's Yoga Nrsimha. There you see his silver hands hanging down over his knees. There's many Yoga Nrsimha deity forms. A royal family in the past worshipped this deity and built a temple for the deity. It looks like a very opulent temple. Here's Garuda in the front. Again, Yoga Nrsimha, there's this band that goes between the two knees that yogis would sometimes use, and there's lots of Yoga Nrsimha deities where you'll see that yoga position. Here's another Yoga Nrsimha. Hundreds of years ago, it is said that there was a saint passing through the jungle, and he heard a roaring sound coming from a cave in a hill, and he went inside the cave and he came out with this deity. And that very night the man and his family were attacked by tigers, but they took shelter of the deity and they were all protected somehow. And the saint said that worship should never be stopped or else it's going to be a problem. So that's the local situation with this deity. And Ugra Nrsimha, although he's Ugra Nrsimha, they call him Happy Nrsimha with a big mustache. And the history is the temple was constructed by some great devotee with help from the local village people around 800 years ago. As you can see, there's many wonderful forms of Lord Nrsimhadev that we don't hear so much about. Here he is with silver hands and golden feet, again in this yoga posture. It's up on a mountain, and it's said that countless saints through the 800 plus years of the history of the temple visited here. It is said that Ramanujacharya stayed here for some time. It was one of the places visited by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his South Indian tour, mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it's a well-known and nicely worshipped deity. We're almost done with these slides. Chintamani Nrsimha. Very, very large deity. That's all it says in this biography. Here's another Yoga Nrsimha deity. Almost 500 years ago, this is the main deity within the village. There's information about the book. And I wrote to Dharmatma, the father, and said, I have spoken to some people that ordered this book and they haven't gotten their book yet. And he said because it took ages for the book to come from India. But finally this week, Monday, the books came and they're madly shipping them out because they wanted people to have them for Lord Nrsimhadev's appearance day. As you can see, it's a very large book, 18 by 14 and 2 inches thick. It weighs as much as she weighs probably, it's very heavy, thick paper, and fantastic color. So that's just some information, just inspiration about Lord Nrsimhadev. And largely I'm mentioning this because in our communities there's lots of children, and there should be literature that's specific for children. Now, adults can also appreciate Lord Nrsimhadev, but it seems to me like a nice way for families to sit together and become attached to Lord Nrsimhadev together and see the different deity forms and think, gee, maybe we should go visit these holy places and see some of these deities. And it helps create Nrsimha Bhakti or Krishna Bhakti just by seeing and hearing the descriptions of. Because tomorrow we'll be observing Nrsimha Chaturdasi. You can't see the moon tonight, but we saw it last night and it looked almost full already. And then tonight, of course, it's too cloudy, but let's see what happens tomorrow. So this is a section of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 4th of 5 chapters dealing with Lord Nrsimhadev's appearance. And this is a section after he's appeared, chapter 9. There's 55 verses. We're not going to cover them all, obviously. But the previous chapter, 8, was the prayers offered by the demigods. Beautiful prayers. And then meant to pacify Lord Nrsimhadev. Well, he wasn't becoming pacified. He was still roaring and in an angry mood. And so the beginning of this chapter 9, they encouraged Prahlad to come forward and offer his prayers, and so he does. And the previous 3 chapters, it's the appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev from the previous chapter and things leading up to that. Prahlad's life as a child, his teaching of his classmates, his encounters with his father. That the whole narration is what comes prior. This section of the Bhagavatam is very much appreciated by Lord Chaitanya. This is a painting showing Gadadhar Pandit reciting Srimad Bhagavatam by the banks of Narendra Sarovar. You know it's a Sarovar because there's the waves. And you know it's Narendra Sarovar because Narendra Sarovar has this black and white checkered marble around the perimeter of the Sarovar, the lake. And this is King Prataparudra. He commissioned the painting. And the painting is Gadadhar Pandit reciting. You'll see another image that's in color that gives the names in Bengali. That's how I know who's who here. This is Lord Chaitanya, and this is Lord Nityananda. This is Advaita Acharya. This is Gadadhar. This is Srivas. This is Jagatananda Pandit and Raghunath Das Goswami. And over here there's Swarup Damodar, and this is Swarup Damodar. And this is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And over here hanging up his clothing, that's Haridas. So I find it very interesting that if you're the king, you can commission a painting about Lord Chaitanya. One might think, well, it'd be Lord Chaitanya performing Sankirtan, Yuga Dharma. But instead it's reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing from Gadadhar Pandit reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which means it's something that they regularly did together. And he is offering his obeisances to everybody. Now whether it was at Narendra Sarovar or some other place, the palace of the king is near Narendra Sarovar, so maybe that's why it's in that location. But in any case, this is an activity of the residents of Puri hearing Gadadhar Pandit recite Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a little passage in Chaitanya Charitamrita that tells of the daily activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, rising early, taking his bath, going to attend Mangal Arti, seeing the form of Lord Jagannath, chanting and dancing, and then the pujaris would give him some prasad of Lord Jagannath. And then he would take that prasad and go visit Haridas and give the prasad of Jagannath to Haridas. They would have their discussions for some time. And then daily he would go to the Tota Gopinath temple. Tota is a local language meaning garden, because the deity of Gopinath was found by Gadadhar Pandit when that was the residence that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to Gadadhar Pandit, and while staying there he found the deity somehow. And then he worshipped the Gopinath deity, and every day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come to see Gopinath, again chant and dance in ecstasy, and then he would sit and hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Gadadhar Pandit every day for hours. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, okay, that there we go. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would hear him speak the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj, and after hearing the entire pastime, he would then say it again. Say it again. Not like, I've heard that one. Say something different, like we do in ISKCON. Got anything new? I heard that one. Because the Bhagavatam is meant to be relished by hearing it again and again, like making sandalwood, and you rub and the fragrance comes out and the coolness comes out, although it's just a piece of wood. The Bhagavatam is meant like that, to be heard again and again, and in the association, who can only imagine? Gadadhar Pandit is Srimati Radharani, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself in the mood of Radharani, hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam together. Too bad they didn't have an MP3 recorder for that. We could then hear that description. The Gopinath deity is sitting. You can't see so well. Normally with the dress hanging down you can't see at all. But it is said that when Gadadhar Pandit got a little older, it was difficult for him to reach the deity, so the deity sat down, making it easier for him. So the Gopinath deity is in a sitting position. Here's that painting again with the Bengali names of who's who. So if you're Bengali you can read it, if not. Srila Prabhupada in turn gave us these teachings, same teachings that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard and the associates in Puri heard on a regular basis, so that we could also enter into the realm of transcendence just through transcendental sound vibration. Prabhupada dedicated so much time and energy to providing us with this resource. And the main person that we're going to be hearing about is Prahlad and his worshipable deity, Lord Nrsimhadev. Here's a little description from a chapter summary, one of the earlier chapters, Prabhupada in 2 sentences describing Prahlad. By accepting the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj, who is in the Parampara succession, one will be able to understand the mode of spiritual life that underlining is mine. In accepting this mode of activity, there is no need for material qualification. Later on, in chapter 10, Prahlad says that Lord Vishnu, or Lord Narayana, instructed Prahlad to descend from Vaikuntha and come into this world to teach the mode of bhakti. So Prabhupada is restating it in his chapter summary. His mission, his gift to the world, is to help us understand the mode of spiritual life. So as we hear about him and hear his prayers and so forth, that should be a focus point. What's the mode of spiritual life? And in our accepting this mode of spiritual life or mode of activity, there's no need of material qualifications. That's the second outstanding theme that comes from Prahlad's prayers. You'll see as we go along. So the mode of spiritual activity or spiritual life, and no necessity for material qualifications to enter. So although there's no need for material qualifications, Prahlad had outstanding spiritual qualifications, and there's listing 4 of them. One, he's one of the great authorities. In fact, he's the first one on the list. Prahlada, Janaka, Bhishma, and so forth. This list of the 12 great Mahajans is provided by one of them, Yamaraj, when he's teaching the Yamadutas the ways of Dharma, and the persons that understand Dharma best, these 12, and Prahlad is one. During the Mahaprakash Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's when Lord Chaitanya sat on the altar in Srivas Thakur's home and had one by one the devotees come forward and worship him, and he revealed their spiritual identity. When Haridas came forward, he said, "No wonder you're humble in this way and feeling up the welfare of others in this way, because you are an incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj." That's in Chaitanya Bhagavat. In ISKCON, we're accustomed to hearing that Haridas Thakur is an incarnation of Lord Brahma. And that's because that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. Because of time, I'm not going to go into the detail, but after his offense in Vrindavan of stealing the calves and cowherd boys, Brahma went to Navadvip to perform austerities. Lord Chaitanya appeared and said, you please me very much by your austerity. I want you to know that I'm going to appear in this form in the next yuga, and you'll be one of my associates. And Haridas says, how wonderful, but I don't want to make the same mistake again of offending you, the Supreme Lord. So please give me a service that's very simple and humble. And Mahaprabhu says, okay, you will become Namacharya, Haridas Thakur, born in a Muslim family. So you'll not be considered even a Hindu. So that's how we have the Haridas. So, but it's not. It's quite possible that Haridas Thakur can be known in both ways. There are other associates of Mahaprabhu that are like that. So Prahlad appears as Haridas Thakur, and in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, just like Haridas was the exemplar acharya of the chanting of the holy name, the Shikshastaka 3 indicates how one can do what Haridas did, constantly chanting. And Prahlad has the same qualifications. Profound humility, you'll hear in his prayers. Great tolerance, despite all of what Hiranyakashipu did, he was totally tolerant. Offering respect to everybody with no expectation of respect. Prahlad is a perfect example of Shikshastaka 3. And finally, Prabhupada often used this phrase Paradukkha Dukhi in describing Prahlad. When he would speak in lectures, those that have heard his recorded lectures know this phrase very well. Paradukkha Dukhi means that Prahlad didn't have distress for himself, but he found distress in the distress of others. Dukkha Dukhi. And I took the trouble to find out where does this phrase come from. It's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita in relation to Raghunath Das Goswami's composition where he is appreciating Sanatan Goswami. Raghunath Das looked up to Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami, and he speaks of Sanatan Goswami in this way, in this book, that says, I was averse to serving the personality of Godhead, but Sanatan Goswami being a para dukkha dukhi person, he took kindness upon me and he forced me to drink the nectar of bhakti, and now I can't live without it. Something to that effect. So, para dukkha dukhi, that's Prahlad. Kind to everyone, and his only distress is the distress of others. So now we're going to take a look at the worshipable deity of Prahlad, and that's Lord Nrsimhadev. And Nrsimhadev grants the power to destroy all obstacles in the path of devotional service. I don't know if you're aware of that. He not only destroys, that protects the devotee from difficulty outside, but inside. There's the 5th canto, prayers of Prahlad to Lord Nrsimhadev, where he's praying to him, with your sharp teeth and claws and nails and everything, please remove from my heart all the contaminations. So there's this related verse that our acharyas help us understand from Brahma Samhita. Let's just chant the verse together. Yat pada pallava yugam viditaya kumbha dvandve pranama samaye sadana virajaha vidnam prahantam ahamasya jagatrayasya govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I put in really big letters kumbha dvandve for a reason. Kumbha means pot, and dvandve means two. So the translation of Bhakti Siddhanta is, I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, whose lotus feet are always held by Ganesha upon the pair of tumuli, kumbha dvandve, protruding from his elephant head. So this is Bhakti Siddhanta's language. Probably, like myself, none of you know the meaning of this word tumuli. So I looked it up. And in some cultures, instead of having a tomb for a saintly person or something like that, the VIP or village elder or respected person, instead of just burying the person, they create this mound of earth that marks where the person is buried. Not samadhi, but that's what different cultures do. So that mound of earth, the English translation is bulge or swell, it's called a tumulus. You have two or more, and it's plural, it's a Latin word. So the pair of tumuli become these two bulges on the top of an elephant's head. And so as an elephant has these two bulges, the verse is saying that Govinda places his two lotus feet on these two bulges, or the pair of tumuli, on the head of Ganesha. Why? In order to obtain power for his function of destroying all the obstacles in the path of progress of the three worlds. Anybody that knows a little bit about the Karma Kanda rituals, he's indispensable. You have to have a proper devata, you have to have a proper sankalpa, you have to have a proper priest, you have to have a proper person wishing to be benefited in a certain way, and you have to have Ganesha to remove the obstacles. So he removes obstacles on the path of progress of the three worlds. And according to our Gaudiya Acharyas, that form of Lord Govinda, who places his lotus feet on the tumuli of Ganesha, is Lord Nrsimhadev. And therefore, we worship Lord Nrsimhadev. In fact, this is the reason, or one of the reasons, why after performing arti we sing Nrsimha prayers. Because during seva, there might be some seva parad. And seva parad makes an obstacle on the path of devotional service. So we offer our prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev, that in effect it's, please remove the obstacles on the path of devotional service. So we're not interested in path of progress of the three worlds, we're interested in the path of progress of bhakti. So we worship Lord Nrsimhadev. And some of you, probably a number of you, have read Nectar Devotion, and you've noted that there's 64 articles of service, and you read carefully and you find one of them is worshipping Ganesh. So the devotees ask Prabhupada, this is listed in Nectar Devotion, but you didn't teach us, so what's the reason? And Prabhupada said, because if you worship Ganesha, you'll have material desire, and he'll help you fulfill your material desire, and that'll get you further entangled in the material world. And so I didn't teach you to worship Ganesha, just worship Lord Nrsimhadev. So that's Lord Nrsimhadev. He helps remove the obstacles on the path of progress in bhakti. So we worship him. because of our situation. Now, just a few other things about Lord Nrsimhadev. This is now coming from Rupa Goswami. Some of you know that in addition to Nectar Devotion or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, a very important book written by Rupa Goswami was Laghu Bhagavatamrita. And Laghu Bhagavatamrita is essentially addressing one of the 6 questions of the sages of Naimisharanya. It's a book that's this thick. One question. And the question is, or was, could you describe the forms of the Lord, the avatars, as they appear in this world? So it's just a book on the avatars. It's an exposition on the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. So what's written here is directly a quote from Gopi Pranadana Prabhu's translation. The next 4 slides, that's what it is. Just information about Lord Nrsimhadev. The essence of what you're going to see is that Lord Nrsimhadev and Ram and Krishna are in a special category, that is, they manifest completely the opulences of the Supreme Lord. That's this Shad, the 6 Aishvarya, Shad Aishvarya Purna. The technical name is this one, Paravastha. And going from those who exhibit less to more of opulences. Some of the incarnations in the Avesha category are the 4 Kumaras, Narada and Prithu. That's the Avesha category. And then is Prabhava is next, while Mohini, Dhanvantri, Hamsa, Vyasa, Datta, and Shukla are some of the Prabhava avatars. Next, the Vaibhava incarnations display a more superior potency than the Prabhavas. In examples, Matsya, Kurma, Narayan, etc. Even more powerful than the are the Paravasta avatars, the 3 in that category, Nrsimha, Rama, and Krishna. More power than the others. Lord Krishna alone is the source of all incarnations, and no other incarnation can supersede him. This is Rupa Goswami quoting directly from Padma Purana. Padma Purana again describes, as you see the reference at the bottom, quoted in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, the 6 qualities. This is his statement. Now here's the scriptural reference. The 6 qualities are fully manifest in Nrsimha, Rama, and Krishna. They are thus considered Paravastha. The relation between the other 2, Nrsimha and Rama, and Krishna is like lamps lit from the lamp of full 6 powers, similar to our Brahma Samhita message. You know that verse? Departure eva shantaramabhyupetya Dipayate pravritaheta samana dharma Yastat prageva isha vishnutaya vivati Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The avatars are likened in Brahma Samhita, as in this Padma Purana verse, as like lamps lit from a lamp. And these 3, Nrsimha, Rama, and Krishna, have the opulences completely in fullness. So they're in this special category. And then now the last 2 slides, this is Rupa Goswami quoting what's the name of the principal commentator of Srimad Bhagavatam who lived before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted as the authority on Srimad Bhagavatam. His name is Sridhar Swami. Bonus question. What's the name of his commentary? Starts with a B. Bhavarta Deepika. Bhavarta Deepika. So this is quoted from Sridhar Swami. Lord Nrsimhadev appeared before the churning of the milk ocean in the reign of the Chakshusa Manu, number 6. He appeared before the appearance of Lord Kurma. He displays abundant power. He gives joy to Prahlad. He destroys ignorance of the devotee. He's effulgent like the autumn moon. He possesses the head of a lion, in whose mouth resides all eloquence, in whose chest resides Lakshmi, in whose heart resides knowledge. There it is, Bhavarta Deepika. Just quoting Sridhar Swami. And the last slide, when he makes his appearance from the pillar, his hair shook the clouds, his glaring eyes stole the effulgence of the luminaries in the sky, his breathing agitated the seas and oceans, his roaring caused elephants to cry in fear. Airplanes, not 747s, were thrown into outer space and the upper planetary system. The earth appeared to slip from its position by the pressure of his lotus feet. And hills and mountains sprang up by his intolerable force. So, very intense, Lord Nrsimhadev. However, as intense and as ferocious as he was, for the devotee, he is as cool as the moon. Quoting Sridhar Swami. So, fierce for Hiranyakashipu and cool as the moon for Prahlad. Last, Bhavarta Deepika. Although very ferocious, the lioness is very kind to her cubs. Similarly, although very ferocious to non-devotees like Hiranyakashipu, Lord Nrsimhadev is very, very soft and kind to devotees like Prahlad. So now we're ready for the first of Prahlad's prayers, chapter 9. This is, the whole of Canto 7 is narrated by Narada. He's narrating to Yudhisthira Maharaj after the slaying of, or the death of Shishupal at the time of the Rajasuya sacrifice. There's a long description of how the Prahlad Maharaj story is narrated. This is the phrase that's in dark print here, large in red print, Manyu Samrambham, which translates as very angry, extremely angry. Narada continued, the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and other great demigods, dared not come forward before the Lord, who at that time was extremely angry. So, he's supposed to be peaceful and serene and gentle, and so what's this anger? But he was very, very angry, and transcendentally angry. So he showed many hands and showed his claws and roared very loudly, and eyes that were red like molten fire, and pounced on Hiranyakashipu and ripped his abdomen and decorated his body with the garland of intestines. Woo! Here's a statement written by Srila Prabhupada summarizing how Lord Nrsimhadev became Lord Nrsimhadev, and it's connected to the 4 Kumaras going to the gates of Vaikuntha, being checked by Jai and Vijay. So, being checked by them, the sages cursed, being agitated by the material qualities of passion and ignorance, You are unfit to live in the shelter of Madhu Dvisha's lotus feet, which are free from such modes. It would be better for you to go immediately to the material world and take your birth in a family of most sinful asuras. Sanat Kumar pointing his finger and cursing them. Now, little story behind this word Madhu Dvisha. In Australia, the first GBC in Australia was named Madhu Dvisha. He was given that name at the time of initiation. And amazing devotees now departed us, but he did so much service and loved Prabhupada so much, and Prabhupada loved him so much. And so one time he was serving Prabhupada, and he asked Prabhupada, what's the meaning of my name? Madhu Dvisha. And Prabhupada said, Madhu refers to the Madhu demon who stole the Vedas from Lord Brahma, and Dvisha means envy. The Lord was envious towards Madhu. And Madhu Dvisha said, but how can the Supreme Lord be envious? Because he possesses everything. He has all opulence. And Prabhupada's answer was, anything is possible for Krishna, any emotion in its perfect form. So, here's Madhu Dvisha, who is free from the modes of nature. This is the Lord of Vaikuntha, who is free from the modes of material nature, but also has anger. And this word Dvisha literally means inimical or envious. But is it possible to be inimical or envious that's free from the modes of nature? Absolutely. The Lord shows it. Which means it's different than ours, or say it the other way. Ours is different than his. That, you've heard the phrase, as above, so below? Heard that one? As above, in the spiritual world, everything exists in perfection. And this is a perverted reflection of perfection. But this exists because that exists. So there's Dvisha, or enviousness, in the Supreme Lord that's free from the modes of nature. And there's a very nice example of this, and that's one of the great devotees of Krishna, one of the greatest, one of the Mahajans. Nrsimhadev became angry at Krishna. Why did he become angry at Krishna, his Lord and Master? Because Krishna made Bhishma break his promise. Bhishma had a name before he had the name Bhishma, when he was born. His name was? So he got the name Bhishma because he took this terrible vow, and he upheld this terrible vow even at the face of having to fight Parshuram on the basis of upholding his vow. And Parshuram was unable to defeat him. But Krishna made him break his vow by trickery. Because on the ninth evening of the 18-day battle, Duryodhana went to the tent of Grandfather Bhishma and said, you're the upholder of Dharma, and you're our commander-in-chief, and it's your duty to lead us to victory, but you're not fighting to your capacity. And you're a dharmic person, so you have to step up. And Grandfather Bhishma said, all right, here's 5 arrows. When you come to greet me in the morning, as you do every morning, bring these 5 arrows, and with these 5 arrows tomorrow, I will kill the Pandavas. All 5 of them. Great. It's about time. So he went back to his tent, but Krishna, omniscient Krishna, knew about this exchange. So he pulled Arjuna to the side and said, Arjuna, you remember long ago when Duryodhana gave you a promise because you saved his life from the Gandharva, that you could have some benediction from him, but you said, not now, I don't need anything. Remember that? So now's the time you should ask for that benediction. Tonight, before he takes rest, go to Duryodhana's tent, ask him for the 5 arrows. He'll know what I'm talking about. So Arjuna went and asked for the arrows. Duryodhana gave him the arrows. The next morning, Duryodhana went to greet Bhishma. Where's the arrows? Oh, last night Arjuna came to my tent and asked me for the arrows. Bhishma said, I who have never broken my vow have now had my vow broken by Krishna's cunning trickery. So I will take another vow that Krishna will break his vow that he will not fight, or else I'll kill Arjuna by the end of the day. So intense battle, and Arjuna this and that, and Krishna's firing arrows. Excuse me. Bhishma is firing arrows, Krishna's taking the arrows in his chest. Arjuna feels terrible. Krishna's feeling ecstasy. Because it's one of the secondary rasas is chivalry. So who can be more chivalrous than Krishna's own devotee with Krishna? But you have to be very qualified to have that kind of service. But Bhishma is very qualified, so he was giving Krishna pleasure by taking this opposition and acting as if he's going to kill Arjuna. And it got to the point where that was going to happen, so Krishna picked up the chariot wheel and started charging at Grandfather Bhishma. And Grandfather Bhishma dropped his bow, smiled, smash me, Haribol. You broke your vow. Because what's more important to you than your vow is your devotee, your Bhaktavatsala. So, although he was showing anger, Krishna showed anger, but Grandfather Bhishma showed anger to stimulate this secondary rasa of chivalry of both the Lord and Grandfather Bhishma. Another example is this anger towards Durvasa Muni, who offended Ambarish. Sudarshan went chasing after him. Here's Prabhupada speaking on this verse in Mayapur, 1977, February. So, these bad habits, kama, krodha, kama means lust, krodha means anger. So if they are also coming from God, then how can we neglect it? How can we reject it? There's no need of rejecting. That is Narottam Das Thakur's You cannot reject. That is not possible. As you are a living being, there must be kama, krodha, lobha, moha, matsarya. You cannot reject it. You cannot make it zero. That is impersonalism. But it has its proper use. That you have to know. Unless you know the proper use of everything, proper use means it must be used for Krishna. Then it is proper use. Otherwise, misused. But he's making reference to Narottam Das Thakur's statement that these 6 enemies of the conditioned soul have their appropriate use in service to Krishna. And Narottam Das Thakur says the appropriate use of anger is krodha bhakta dveshi jane. When someone is dveshi jane, bhakta dveshi, somebody is in that category, you don't just, twiddle your thumbs. You show some energy, krodha energy. Narottam gives the example of Hanuman and his burning of the city of Lanka. Because of the offense that had been made to Sita and Ram, Hanuman showed anger enough that he burned the city to a crisp. Here he is looking at the fire, dangling his tail was on fire, the sea, getting ready. He was very calm, ready to go back to give the word to Ram. Sita has been found. one more example of transcendental anger was exhibited by Arjuna. This is from a children's book illustration of a pastime from Mahabharata. When Arjuna took a terrible vow that he would kill Jayadratha. The situation was Jayadratha, we know very well that Duryodhana had 100 sons, but he also had a daughter, one daughter, and that one daughter was married to Jayadratha. So he was part of the royal family, and even on his wedding day, this lusty man saw Draupadi from the side of his wedding chariot and became overwhelmed with lust and attracted to Draupadi. So sometime later he saw Draupadi alone. At least he thought she was alone. And he tried to accost her and drag her away and do what bad men do to women. And she punched him in the jaw and knocked him to the ground. Draupadi is not a wimp, powerful lady. But he is a general, and he got up and tied her up and put her on his chariot and driving off. And unfortunate for Jayadratha, Bhima saw this. Bhima caught him, was ready to break him into a piece of powder. But his elder brother, Yudhisthira, saw this and stopped him. Said he's a relative, don't mutilate him, just humiliate him and send him on his way. So they cut his hair in various pieces with the sharp sword and sent him away. You're the slave of Yudhisthira. So Jayadratha was in a get-back spirit. He went into the Himalayas, underwent austerity for a long time to get the favor of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva personally appeared. He asked for his benediction to be able to destroy the Pandavas. He said, will you be able to defeat everyone except Arjuna? You'll be able to not defeat them, but to check them in battle, except for Arjuna. And second one is, benediction is, whoever causes your head to fall, their head will crack into 7 pieces. 2 benedictions. So Jayadratha goes back, feeling, I'm going to get my revenge. During the battle, he held off the Pandavas, minus Arjuna, while 6 or 7 generals ganged up on Abhimanyu and killed him. This is Arjuna's son. When Arjuna heard that Jayadratha was involved in the killing of Abhimanyu in this merciless and illegal way, he took a vow and said, tomorrow, on the battlefield, I will kill Jayadratha personally, and if I fail, then I will enter into fire at the end of the day. So the Kauravas were ecstatic. They had a big festival that night. Because if Arjuna, we can't kill him, but if he kills himself, the battle's over, because the Pandavas are going to be discouraged and we'll win. We just have to do one thing tomorrow. Protect Jayadratha. That's everything. The plan was made to protect Jayadratha. And Krishna heard of Arjuna's vow and said, why'd you take such a terrible vow? And he said, I knew you'd protect me. And Krishna did. So the next day, Jayadratha was killed. Long story, the whole section of Mahabharata. And when the head of Jayadratha went sailing in the air from one of Arjuna's arrows, it landed a long distance away in the lap of his father, who was doing meditation. When his father saw the head of his son on his lap, he pushed it off his lap and his head cracked. So don't mess with Arjuna. And similarly with Karna, because of his bad deeds, he was dealt with in an appropriate manner. Karna complained, this is not Dharma, and Krishna defeated him with his so-called claim for Dharma, and Karna was finished. So the Lord shows anger, and his devotee may show anger, but when the devotee, we shouldn't imitate. Go around being angry and saying, it's bona fide. Narottam Das Thakur said, being angry is okay. Being angry isn't okay. Being beyond the modes of nature is okay. And I think we're just, because of time, it's already after 9 o'clock, we'll just cover this one more of Prahlad's prayers. It's also very interesting. You see this word adbhutam. You'll see this again in a moment. Drishtvatam mahad adbhutam. And this sankita, shankita. There was fear. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, there she is, Shri, was requested to go before the Lord by all the demigods present, but who, because of fear, could not do so. The demigods were in this shankita, fearful stage, and she was in this adbhuta stage. She had never seen such a wonderful and extraordinary form of the Lord, and thus she could not approach him. Now, of course she's seen this form. Here's an explanation. Lakshmi always serves the Supreme Lord. How could she not see? And one of his forms is the Nrsimha form, so she must have seen. The Lord has unlimited forms and bodily features. Advaita Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam. These are his forms. The original is Krishna. These are all situated in Vaikuntha. Yet, Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, being inspired by Leela Shakti, could not appreciate this unprecedented form of the Lord. Now, this is a term, normally in ISKCON we hear the term Yogamaya. By the Yogamaya potency of the Lord, Sataratada. So she couldn't recognize him. It's a term that's used, you'll see in a moment, by Vishwanath. It's used by him in the same way that we're accustomed in ISKCON to using by Yogamaya potency. Like Mother Jasoda looked inside the mouth of Krishna and she saw everything within the mouth of Krishna, but she couldn't accept it because of the Yogamaya potency. Oh, Leela Shakti has a similar meaning. Right from Prabhupada's purport. In other words, for the common men, the form of the Lord as Nrsimhadev is certainly unseen and wonderful, but for a devotee like Prahlad Maharaj, such a fearsome form of the Lord is not at all extraordinary. By the grace of the Lord, a devotee can very easily understand how the Lord can appear in any form he likes. Therefore, the devotee is never afraid of such a form because of special favor bestowed upon Prahlad Maharaj. He remained silent and unafraid, even though all the demigods, including even Lakshmi Devi, were afraid of Lord Nrsimhadev. Now here's Vishwanath's explanation. He's going to comment on both verses 1 and 2, because this is from verse 2. In the 9th chapter, Prahlad, ordered by Brahma, approaches the Lord and offers prayers so that the devatas can approach him. What to speak of others, even Lakshmi could not calm Nrsimha. That's chapter 8. Prahlad, however, understood that Lord Nrsimha was the embodiment of affection. And then, though she had seen Nrsimhadev in a previous kalpa, and though Narasimha is always present in Vaikuntha, the impression of not having previously seen or heard about this form was produced by the Leela Shakti in order to make everyone taste Adbhuta Rasa, the mood of astonishment. So this Adbhuta Rasa is one of the 7 secondary rasas. So this is a little nectar devotion class right now. There's 5 primary and 7 secondary rasas. 5 plus 7 makes 12. The 5 primary rasas are neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental, and conjugal love. And amongst the 7 secondary, Adbhuta is one. So, according to what Vishwanath is saying, there was a plan of the Supreme Lord that everyone should taste the secondary rasa, Adbhuta rasa. So he, the Supreme Lord, through his Leela Shakti, he had purposefully, intentionally, deliberately, Lakshmi couldn't recognize this form. And so she was astonished. And as she was astonished, the others were astonished. The whole mood of astonishment was assisted by this feeling of, I've never seen this form before, and I can't have anything to do with this form that I've never seen before. Too fearful. I'm afraid. Astonished. And this is the way of loving exchange with the Supreme Lord. There's primary rasa, and there's secondary rasa, and they mix. And they mix according to the Lord's design, so that the devotee can experience different... Because secondary rasas, when the secondary rasa is prevalent, it seems to obscure the primary rasa, but actually the primary rasa is enhanced during that period of time. And then when the secondary rasa subsides, the primary rasa comes to the fore again and is enriched by that prior experience of the secondary rasa. It's what Rupa Goswami teaches us in Nectar Devotion. And this is an example right within the prayers of Prahlad by the assistance of Vishwanath, so that we can understand why she couldn't see, why she couldn't recognize. She's the goddess of fortune, but it's the Lord's internal potency, his Yogamaya potency, or his Leela Shakti potency. So she couldn't recognize this transcendental form. So I hope you all have a wonderful Nrsimha Chaturdasi tomorrow. Some thoughts about Lord Nrsimhadev and appreciation of him and his dear devotee Prahlad, for whom he appeared, to give protection to him and give nice... There's instructions that come in the later parts of this chapter and the beginning parts of the next chapter. The exchange of love between Prahlad and I turned mine off. So any discussion? Yes.
My question, just like Lakshmi, she was kind of confused about this is my Lord.
Yes.
So did Prahlad Maharaj had because maybe how he heard about the Lord Narayan, Vishnu, but
he wasn't bewildered like she was bewildered. That's okay. The demigods were bewildered like she was bewildered, but Prahlad was not. A different potency was extended to Prahlad to invite the intimacy with the Lord. And the others were on the outside experiencing this secondary rasa predominantly. But it's just exchanges of love in different mellows and different moods at the same time. That's fine. Yes?
Is that the Nrsimhadev from Mayapur?
How did you know?
What can guess?
Yeah, okay. So is that one.
It's close up.
Close up, yeah. Yes.
Maharaj, like Ram, how long the duration was, whole Treta Yuga, and then Krishna's...
Not the whole of Treta Yuga, good part. 60,000 out of 100.
So like that, like Nrsimha's, is it the duration is how long?
Short.
It was very short.
Very short. We only hear this little, and then where did he go? Back to Vaikuntha. He appeared for Prahlad. He didn't stay and have pastimes. Yes?
I was quoted Srila Prabhupada saying that all the 6 enemies of the jiva, Matsarya is also quoted, but then he says we cannot avoid it. In most of the places it said that all these 6 enemies, lust and greed, envy, pride, delusion, we can use everything in the Lord's service except envy. Here Srila Prabhupada uses the word Matsarya. How do you use that?
Well, it's a good question. And I'm only repeating this particular part because what you say is something other than what this says. And Prabhupada said the other also. Well, certainly it exists in the Supreme Lord because it's directly in the statements. The Lord was angry, and it comes later in the chapter also. The word dvesha or dvisha is used later in this chapter 9. That's from the Lord's position and Prabhupada's explanation. All I can do is just repeat what Prabhupada said, but how to balance the two statements I can't. The Supreme Lord, everything that exists has its rest in the Supreme Lord. Say it conversely. There isn't something that exists apart from the Supreme Lord. So if there's something here, it's the perverted reflection of something that's in the Supreme Lord. It must be, because otherwise it can't exist here. So it must be in the Supreme Lord, in all perfection. So if that exists in the Supreme Lord in all perfection, we don't find in the spiritual world there's no demons. So this is one of the background descriptions, again compliments of Vishwanath, that Jai and Vijay, being gatekeepers of the Lord, they intimately knew their master. And they knew that he has this chivalry, secondary rasa, but how's that going to be fulfilled in Vaikuntha? Who's going to be, in opposition to him, and he has chivalry with him? So they prayed, if you so desire, we can do that service. So he fulfilled that desire. So it doesn't exist in the Vaikuntha realm, but the Lord then appeared in this material realm that's in doing something even more wonderful than what's found in the spiritual realm. It's something like he was unborn is born. That's the best way I can answer your question. He was unborn, Aja, or Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Adir Govind. He who has Anadi is Adi. He has no beginning. He's the beginning of everything. So, as there's no birth, Leela in Goloka Vrindavan, or a birth Leela, appearance Leela of the Supreme Lord, Ram appears, takes birth as the son of Dasratha, but there's no pastime like that in Ayodhya, or etc. So there's the bhava, but not the manifestation. So here, there's the exhibition of this dvesha, but it doesn't have its place in Vaikuntha. That's the best I can do. Yes?
As I was thinking, like you explained how anger can be used in the service of the Lord.
If it's beyond the modes of nature.
How can the lust and greed be used in the service of the Lord?
The gopis, the example of lust that Prabhupada, Narottam speaks of, and Prabhupada regularly would speak of, Jiva Goswami would speak of. We say, when we use the word lust in relation to the gopis, it's devoid of the modes of nature. But it's lust for the satisfaction of the senses of Krishna. Now, that's beyond our capacity, but that's the perfection of that principle of lust in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And greed has its material contamination, but it has its pure form is one is intensely eager. Lolium, you familiar with that term? Lolium, you know the meaning? Greed. It's according to Nectar Devotion, it's a qualification a devotee must have to enter into the pastimes of Krishna and Vrindavan. An intense eagerness, a greediness to enter into the pastimes of Krishna and Vrindavan, not artificially, but transcendentally eager to the point of greedy. Lolium. That, you know, when it is exercised properly, it ushers in pure bhakti. It enhances pure bhakti. We can't imitate. Oh, we shouldn't imitate anyway. Yeah.
Maharaj, we say that unless we get rid of the anarthas, we don't develop love.
We don't.
Develop love for Krishna.
Yeah.
And unless we get the love, we don't overcome the anarthas.
No. It's the first one, yes. Second one, no. Because the bhakti process over a period of time can overcome the anarthas. There's the anartha nivritti stage, isn't it? So, and how does the anartha nivritti stage progress? By bhajana kriya. Bhajana kriya, sustained over time, results in anartha nivritti, and then the higher stages of bhakti. So bhakti, sustained over time, properly performed, can overcome anarthas. So the second part is no.
I would like to rephrase it.
Okay,
Unless we get the higher taste, we don't lose the lower taste.
That's correct.
And unless we lose the lower taste, we don't get the higher taste.
No. It's progressive. When you turn the light on, darkness is dispelled. So supposing there's a switch over here. It's the on and off switch. They call it a rocker arm switch. Then there's this dimmer switch. So that's the kind that where our switch is the dimmer switch kind. By gradually increasing bhakti, there's a higher taste. And when by increasing bhakti the higher taste, the lower taste fades. It's gradual, progressive. It's a cultivation. Anushilanam, in the language of Rupa Goswami. A cultivation, gradual cultivation of higher taste through the medium of bhakti. It's like, Krishna Prasadam. We've lost the taste for other things. If somebody offers some of those other things, we don't have to think about it. Not just because there's a rule, it's just like, it's disgusting. We've lost that lower taste by the higher taste. Yes?
Guru Maharaj, you mentioned that Prabhupada told to his disciples about the demigod worship. When you worship Ganesha or any demigod, you will have material desires and then they will be fulfilled. So I just wanted to get an understanding of you will have material desires.
Oh, you have. Not you will have. He's saying to his disciples, you have material desire. If you go with material desire to worship Ganesha, what's going to happen? He'll remove the obstacles for the attaining of your material desire. Lochan Das Thakur wrote a biography about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. In the beginning passages, he offers prayers to Ganesha. He's on a platform where he doesn't have to worry. We're on a platform where we have to worry. And Prabhupada protecting us from the worry. Just worship Lord Nrsimhadev. You got it? Or no?
So for sure, the material desires as tendencies or whatever it is there, they exist.
Well, temporarily they exist. They're not permanently existing.
It is that it will enhance. Like if you do demigod worship, it will enhance the material desire more.
Yeah. And the purpose of that worship will be fulfilled, which will then further entangle us. Krishna is very kind. There's this verse in the Bhagavatam, I'm not such a foolish person. People have come to me for material things, I won't give them those material things. But if I give them those material things, I'll do it in such a way they'll never come again. Because instead I'll give my 2 lotus feet and they'll never. So this is the higher taste, dismisses the lower taste. Through bhakti. So we should worship Krishna for that reason, or Lord Nrsimhadev for that reason, instead of, Om Jai Jagadisha Hare. Yes.
But sometimes the situations are like so intense, and
What's intense?
like some the material situations are so
Situations
intense.
are intense.
And then if the bhakti is not that strong, we
Get overwhelmed.
Yeah, and then we ask for the protection from that kind of material
Yeah,
things.
right. That's the way it goes.
Like we know sometimes it's not good to pray for
Of
those
course.
things, but it's like so intense that and
Yeah.
the bhakti is not so
So
strong.
we're unsteady in our bhakti. That's a stage of bhakti.
So what would be the right kind of prayers?
Steady bhakti is the right kind. Until you get there, it's going to be unsteady. Sometimes and sometimes. We cultivate, and we can come to the steady stage. But what's standing between us and the steady stage is our anarthas, our impurities. And we have to work our way through it. We've got a whole, according to Jiva Goswami, it's not just this lifetime, it's multiple lifetimes. We take birth with a whole bundle of anarthas and reactions to past misdeeds, both karma and anarthas, from many previous lifetimes, not just one. So it's not, we have to be sincere and serious and sustain our effort over time and properly perform. And in between it's unsteady, sometimes and sometimes. You have something? No?
One question is, I don't know if that is related, like how Prahlad Maharaj was like, Hiranyakashipu went for meditation for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So how come Prahlad Maharaj was there in the womb? Like he was staying thousands of years in the womb?
However long he was there, Prahlad was in the womb. Kayadu, according to not the Bhagavatam, but another Puranic description, might be Padma Purana, she requested Narada for the benediction that my son not be born until my husband comes back. So he granted her that benediction. So however long, that's how long he stayed. Poor mom, she was like, uncomfortable for quite a while. But Prahlad got to hear for quite a while.
many years we've heard.
Long time. There are different numbers that are given in different places of reference. 100 years, 1,000 years, different numbers. Okay, we're done? Srila Prabhupada ki
Nrsimhadev Swami Maharaja ki jai.